My favorite definition of shame. Shame is the breaking of the interpersonal bridge.
My brain is just exploding right now.
Anytime there's a different skin color, or somebody has a different car, or somebody has a different birth order, the nervous system goes into shame. That's just wired in.
100%.
Anytime there is shame, there is a reaction, which I call the Rosetta Stone of shame.
Interesting.
Attack self, attack other, deny or withdraw. Sometimes one, sometimes all four in a row.
Holy moly.
I'm Sheila Rubin. My definition of belonging is feeling like I haven't made a mistake, but that I've made an incredible series of positive things that lead me to this very moment.
Sheila Rubin, you are in the studio with me, about to have an incredible conversation regarding a topic that is so dear to my heart. Hi.
Hi. I'm so honored to be here.
I'm just taking you in. I've known you for, a decade and a half. You are a master therapist. You work with thousands of coaches and therapists on a particular topic. In fact, you wrote an entire book on this topic. It's called Embracing Shame: How to Stop Resisting Shame and Turn It into a Powerful Ally. And this just excites me to know and to talk about shame with you. You are also the founder and co-director of the Center for Healing Shame, and together with your husband, Brett Lyon, you wrote this book. People come to you when they've tried everything else because shame is, in fact, so incredibly insidious. You know, right now I'm talking with so many leaders. It's interesting in the last few weeks about how do we start to create cultures of care. And what I'm connecting in terms of the dots here and listening to you is, until we actually look at, acknowledge, and step into relationality with our shame, creating cultures of care is going to be really challenging.
Right. Anytime there's difference, there's shame. Anytime there's a different skin color, or a different, somebody has a different car, somebody has a different birth order. Anytime there's difference in a conversation between what somebody thought was happening and what is happening, the nervous system goes into shame, and it goes into shame to protect us so that we could slow down, figure out what's happening, and figure out, do I need to move forward? Do I need to move backward? What's happening? That's just wired in.
Why is it shame and not curiosity or some kind of assessment element?
Shame is in the nervous system. Curiosity is
not in the nervous system.
Well, it is in the nervous system.
Oh, it is.
And it's a way to get out of shame. That's how I get curious about people's stories. I get curious about who they are, what they survived. But I start with, how are they thriving? What is their pride? And I start with people's pride, and what are they proud of? And they come to a couple session and they're like, we're not doing very well. We're here. Can we cut to the chase? Can we get to the, tell us what it is, and I say, tell me what happened. Why are you together? Because I want to start with a foundation of hope and curiosity. Which is
foundation of
shame.
Hope.
Yeah.
So let's unpack that a little bit. But first, I want to get really clear. When you say it's in the nervous system, what does that mean to you?
I recently did this, and there were 200 people on Zoom that had been hired to teach for a school in China, and I had Chinese students who were therapists or becoming therapists, and I had them stand up, and I said, put your head down, put your chest in, look down, notice, what do you feel when you're looking down? Notice, can you ask for help? Notice, can you even breathe? And I took them
Wow.
through that very simple exercise. Then I asked them, how do you feel? And they said, there was a translator, they said, not very good, stuck, trapped.
Right.
You know, they all had, shame is a universal emotion. So they all had a different similar experience. Then I had them do a breathing exercises, took them out of the shame and into love. They also were able to breathe through shame and get to love.
How did you take them into love from that state of shame?
I'll show you. If you want to, and anybody in your audience can do simply rubbing your hands, and you don't have to rub your hands, but this is what I'm going to do. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in love. Breathing out shame. Breathing in kindness. Breathing out shame. Breathing in curiosity. Breathing out shame. And a lot of people say it is really difficult to work with shame. And I say, I have been working with shame since I'm 5 years old. I've been working with shame. I've been working with my own shame.
Yeah.
When I became a therapist, I've been working with client shame.
Right. It's
the missing conversation.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. So I want to really take the time to unpack this. So I had a huge epiphany when you were sharing about your exercise with the Chinese participants, which is brilliant to actually create a somatic experience to viscerally understand and the innate knowing of shame, right? To really get to that ancient way of being. But here's the thing. Everyone has a phone. Everyone's looking down at their phone.
Right.
So now what we're doing is we're actually globally creating levels of shame all day long. Right. We're loading this up. And I've been saying for years now within organizations, because that's my primary focus, we are in an epidemic of shame.
Right.
And is this a key reason?
My favorite definition of shame. Shame is the breaking of the interpersonal bridge.
100%.
That's Gershon Kaufman.
Oh, wow.
And when I learned that, I was already a therapist. I was already working with shame. I read his book, Shame, The Power of Caring. But simply understanding that helped me to understand about the eye contact. I was such a shy kid, about all of the things that I had to figure out. Being a shy kid, being the one in my family who was keeping notes because nobody understood what was happening with my family. So what you're saying about people looking at their phones, they're looking at their phones if they're a teenager to find out if they're getting likes. And their friends are either giving them likes or not giving them likes. And the eye contact is broken 100 times a day, 1,000 times a day.
That my brain is just exploding right now. Just different cultures that do not support direct eye contact.
Right.
That tend to be cultures of deference.
Right.
That tend to be cultures that not only embody conformity, but espouse conformity. That this is shame.
It's shame.
I want to take us back to the definition of shame. You have here in your book, shame is both a primary emotion and a state of freeze. This is the fight, flight, freeze.
Yep.
Recently, I'm learning about fawn with a lot of resistance, but that's okay. I'm accepting that. By primary emotion, we mean that shame seems to be experienced by people all over the world.
Right.
Although some animals appear to feel shame, only humans express shame with exceptional power.
Yeah.
By the state of freeze, we are referring to the unique way that shame disrupts our ability to think clearly. Oh, I can speak from experience on that. Our attention turns inward and we become so absorbed in criticizing ourselves that we lose contact with the world. I want to also just make a note that even talking about shame in the way that we are doing can actually activate shame.
Thank you for naming that. I wouldn't write a book till there was a book that could be counter-shaming, because just saying the word shame
Can bring up shame.
can bring up shame.
Yeah.
If I'm talking to somebody at a workshop and I talk about shame, it's like their nervous system goes into shame, and I have to and instantly say it's called healing shame.
Yeah. Healing shame. Oh my God.
When somebody says you're shaming me, I wish I could go back in time and say, shame is happening. I'm not intentionally shaming you, but shame sure is happening. Is there a way we can get curious about it, or put some of it aside, or figure out, does this go back to family history? There is a way. When somebody says you're shaming me, I want to say that it took me a long time. Brett and I are a couple. And this is something that used to happen early on in our relationship. You know, I would be on my cell phone. He would get really upset because for him, that's breaking of contact, and that's breaking of, him, knowing that he belongs and that I care about him.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a way that I was trying to explain to him something that he was doing wrong, and I couldn't explain it to him in a way that he just thought I was shaming him, putting him down. I do this with all my clients. I do this with all my students. I taught them how to counter shame, how to not put down their partner. I teach them how to, work with ways of not, shaming their partner. But I was doing it. And it was really embarrassing. So if I were to go back in time and apologize to him and say, I didn't mean to shame you, I was just trying to give you some information.
So what's happening when someone, unpack that for me. When someone says something and the other person feels shame, but the intention was not to shame the person.
Yeah. Anytime there is shame, there is a reaction, which I call the Rosetta Stone of shame.
Interesting.
Attack self, attack other, deny or withdraw. Sometimes one, sometimes all four in a row. It has a pinball effect on couples where they, tend to do, Brett and I would do the attack self. I would attack myself. He would attack me. So you're not trying to shame somebody, but shame happens when there's difference, when there's disappointment.
So I want to slow this down, because I really want to understand and unpack this in a very specific way, and that specific way is trauma.
Yeah.
So Bessel van der Kolk talks about and defines trauma as something that's unbelievable or unbearable.
Right.
Gabor Mate defines trauma as the essence of loss of self.
Yes.
And my favorite definition is Sarah Payton's definition, which is being too alone. So all trauma is the experience of this deep, deep, isolated state of loneliness. When you look at Brené Brown and how she kind of unpacks shame, she says it's the experience of not feeling lovable. But this comes back to wounding of a childhood or epigenetic state. So all shame, and this is a question, I'll frame it in a question, is all shame the revealing of the raw wound that is being asked to be held, witnessed, acknowledged, and integrated?
Yeah. Shame heals. Shame thrives on secrecy, and shame begins to heal through witnessing, through sharing it a little bit in safe places. So what you're saying, shame happens in the womb. Shame happens in early childhood. Shame happens when somebody doesn't understand.
Shame happens in the womb?
Oh, yeah.
How?
Well, there's developmental, somatic psychology that it's too complicated for today. But imagine imagine the baby is floating and is just kind of in incredible bliss for most of the pregnancy.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden, they notice that they try their elbow and they try their foot. And they notice
no
that
way.
they're not in bliss anymore. And they're like, how, where am I? Why can't I have the bliss? And why can't I have the peace that I had earlier? It's because they're starting to grow and they're starting to fill the space.
Wait a second.
I believe that is shame. I believe that is where the child starts to say, what's wrong with me in the womb? Why am I not having the bliss was here before? Is that landing for you?
100%. But so my mouth is hanging open is that the human condition is inherently shameful.
Well, we have all emotions, including shame.
Right, but not every baby in the womb is going to bang their elbow and like have that experience. But there certainly is a lot around vanishing twin syndrome.
Right.
Right. Things happening in the womb that, aren't to the well-being of the child, the mother experiencing shame, and then there's a huge cortisol dump that gets,
right.
infused into the baby's body in the womb. So all of these pieces,
right.
I think Moshe Saif did a great example about that when he talked about the ice storm in 1998 with around epigenetics and how mothers who were pregnant and had access to resources, the baby fared much better
right.
than the mothers who didn't have access to as much resources fared much worse.
Yeah. So I work with people that are out of the womb, and they have basically a story that they tell about themselves. And the story might be something's wrong with me, or the story might be something's wrong with you. And so I grew up watching my family and noticing there was something really different about my mother. And she had an undiagnosed mental illness. And in those days, there wasn't really help. There was just, I just thought I'd write my little book. And then someday, if somebody asked me, I would talk about all the ways that I learned to cope with her. But I would leave home, I would go to school, I would make eye contact with the teacher, and the teacher would say, "Why are you late?" And I would say, "My mother made me miss the bus." And the teacher would say, "Your mother is not making you miss the bus." This would happen a couple times a week, first grade, second grade, third grade. I finally stopped telling the teacher.
So this is where the secrecy comes into play. The experience that I'm having as a human is actually terrifyingly shameful.
Right.
And so then I begin to hide my own experience as a human, and how that gets impacted is that I start to cover up my sense of authenticity, cover up the parts of me that I might deem as embarrassing or humiliating for others, and then I start to lose access to myself.
Exactly.
Sheila, talk a little bit about the ways in which shame manifested in the past and if it might be manifesting differently today. There's things like social media, cyberbullying, COVID that happened.
Yeah.
Talk about all of those things.
Oh my goodness. All of those affect shame, because shame is always going to be there where there's difference. And then especially with social media, people are down. They're looking on their device, how many likes did they get? How many likes did they not get? And underneath is the what's wrong with me, which is the same shame question.
When people ask what's wrong with me, that's a shame question?
That's the attack self question. There's four, the way shame happens, it doesn't just happen. It is so painful. Our nervous system cannot handle it. And instantly we either get attack self, attack other, deny, or withdraw. And I call that the Rosetta Stone of shame.
Mm-hmm.
And I do the attack self, and I would be saying, what's wrong with me? I need to read another book, or I need to get another degree, or I need to do this or that. What's wrong with me? Brett, my husband and business partner, he does the what's wrong with her, and so he would put me down. And so that would be our couple's dynamic. The withdraw reaction to shame is to pull away. So often I would pull away from shame, and I would see, gee, I got there late for the last interview, so maybe this time I'll get there early. And so that's like the healthy shame that can go with the withdraw and move over to healthy shame. And the deny is like dissociation and addictions and a lot of blaming, think it's somebody else's fault, all of that. So that is like huge. So to understand in any moment, the shame can be bouncing all over those different directions.
How is shame designed to keep us out of trouble?
That is a theory that Brett came up with. And because he's male, and because I'm female, we are so different. And so the shame I grew up with is what's wrong with me, whatever, I got to fix something. And he grew up with, and he realized that he was so angry with his parents that if he would have allowed himself to fully feel the anger, he could have hurt them. So he figured that probably would happen to a lot of males that are in their teenage years.
I see.
And so we tried it out on a lot of our clients, and it happens to males and females, where the shame and the anger, there's a shame anger bind where we don't feel the anger, we just feel the shame.
So the shame is actually preventing us from touching the rawness of the anger, the outrage, the impatience, and then it gets stuck.
Yeah.
And so then now what we're doing is we're spinning in the shame pool.
Right.
When really the way out of the shame is to find the connection to anger, or?
Well, work with the shame, work with a therapist who knows how to work with shame, read my book, things like that.
Right.
Or work with Raj's program, figuring out ways to get out of that trigger, figure out what just happened. Like one of my clients, I think she's in the book, she just like showed up one day and she's like, I'm going to go and I'm going to ask for that raise. And she didn't. I'm like, why didn't you ask for the raise? And she's like, well, I just kind of felt this like reaction and felt sick to my stomach, and I felt kind of pulled away. And it turned out she went into a shame reaction. When we worked with that, it was like, oh, she was actually feeling the shame, and she did a withdraw from the shame, and she realized if she asked for a raise, she'd probably get fired. And she's like, I realized when I went into the shame, I got to have a little pause, realize I haven't been showing up on time for a while, so I better change up before I ask for the raise. So that was like, the shame helped her reassess, reduce the shame, come back into herself at best.
So the antidote to shame is, according to you, curiosity. I would say for me it would be acknowledgement and witnessing.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing, I think. But how to keep shame at bay is by being in relationship with ourselves.
Yep.
So that we can start to really witness who we are in the moment, especially in the moments of stress and conflict and tension.
Yeah. When I was working, it was so many years ago, but I was eating disorder specialist at a local hospital, and all of my clients were doing the attack self through the food. They were just using food to do the attack self, and their inner critic was voracious. And I was just gently unpacking that with them. And it's like, wow, their inner critic was huge, but I actually had them counter shame, figure out with curiosity what did they really want to be doing if they weren't, self-soothing in that way. And so that happened.
The title of your book is Embracing Shame, Turning Shame into a Powerful Ally, right?
Yeah.
Is the powerful ally piece that curiosity?
Yeah. There's different ways to turn shame into an ally. And the first one is with curiosity. Curiosity is the opposite of shame. And so shame is a very dark, deep kind of emotion that pulls a person into themselves and not feeling very good about themselves. Whereas a curiosity, they can get curiosity, what just happened? Do I want to do something different? Or curious about you talk about epigenetics. It's like to understand somebody's history, somebody's family history, the way it goes back and back and back and back and back. It's like people are not thinking about that. But where the shame comes from, it was probably helpful in the prior generation for people learned how to not share truly, not share fully, because they would get fired or their family would get kicked out or things like that.
What do you say to someone in the workplace who is struggling with self-awareness? Because in order for me to get curious and to bring shame as a powerful ally, I have to self-reflect.
Right. So what I have people do is just like, if they could imagine somebody else, like in a movie or a TV show that was in a similar situation, what might they do? And was there a way that they figured it out? And then eventually I'll say self-reflecting is like writing little notes. I write little stickies. If I'm going to go somewhere, I would have a little sticky. It's like, what do I need to remember this time before a meeting, and before a meeting with a client, I might write down, I have the whole file, but I'm not going to have the file with me, but I'll have a sticky about this is what we talked about. Get curious about this. So the self-reflection happens slowly over time when there's kindness and when there is things that are counter-shaming. So people that are inviting that maybe they feel a little under the weather or they feel a little less than perfect. And sometimes having somebody else feel how they've dealt with embarrassment or something like that, that can help a person begin to do a little bit of self-reflection.
You talked about the binding piece, right? So you said shame and anger. We talked about that, the binding piece, but there's so many. There's shame and anxiety that bind, there's shame and grief that bind, shame and pleasure and addiction that bind, right? Yes. I can speak to all of those personally, which I won't be doing. So what's coming up for me is like when people say, well, I don't get angry, what they're actually saying in like code is I have so much shame around my anger that I can't even find the courage to access my anger because my shame is so dominant.
Exactly.
Holy moly. And then and even shame and pleasure. Is there a bind with shame and joy?
Yeah. Shame and joy, shame and pleasure, it all binds.
So I can speak personally for that. Like I definitely had a shame joy bind for sure. Joy was something that I avoided at all costs for decades. You witnessed that. So much of what you've been talking about is loving kindness, but in order for me to get to loving kindness, I have to have some kind of joy. But now I'm in a bind with shame. Right. So what do I do?
It's so complicated. Shame is like a multi-headed hydra. We work on one part of it, the other part comes up. So part of it is, I would say, be kind to yourself, and the person listening to that, they should be kind to themselves. It is so one of the definitions of shame is the interruption of pleasure. So when, let's see.
Oh my God, I'm just having a huge epiphany right now in my own life. God.
Shame happens many, many times a day. And every time shame happens, we go past, present, future, 90-10 split, whatever is happening. And so to be able to stay present with it, ask questions.
This.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The experience around being accompanied.
Yeah, that's it.
And if we can start to accompany ourselves.
Yeah, that's it.
What happens when we feel accompanied, Sheila?
Well, that's the countering of shame. I'm so glad you asked that question. That is the opposite of shame. That's when the attack self or the attack other or all the different reactions to shame can pause, at least for a little bit. When we accompany shame, we're witnessed. When we accompany shame, we're not alone anymore. When we accompany shame, we're really not alone anymore.
What would you say to someone, a leader, for example, who is like, okay, well, I don't even know where to start. That if how do I even know if I have shame?
Yeah.
Which we could say that everyone has it festering somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Where would I even begin for myself to start to unpack or unlock some shame?
I used to refer people to Gershon Kaufman's book, Shame, the Power of Caring, because he explained it so well. It is so complicated. Now I would refer people to my book, Embracing Shame, because each chapter talks about a different relationship to shame. There's shame clues, the reaction to shame. There's all these different things. And there's exercises so that people don't get triggered. And there's understanding what happened in your family. There's understanding all the way through. If you don't want to have that reaction to shame that your parents and grandparents and all the way back, maybe you want to have a different reaction to shame. And that happens in the exercises in the book. And I didn't want to write a book until I could have a book. Thanks to Sounds True, bless their hearts.
Right.
The book is so beautifully crafted that each chapter transforms into a little bit of healthy shame. There's exercises, there's client studies, there's everything. And each chapter has mindfulness techniques and writing techniques where people can look at the book and read what it says there. I even have a look in the mirror and tell yourself that you love you. That's even in there. And it's just like the missing piece to working with shame is that eye contact that I'm talking about. We don't get it when our partner's on the cell phone. We don't get it when our partner is whatever. We could give it to ourselves. We could hold our own hand. We can look in the mirror. We can look at our own eyes and we're going to say, wow, you're good, or getting better, or something like that.
Okay, so just to play devil's advocate here, I'm steeped in shame. I'm looking in the mirror. I'm telling myself I'm awesome. More shame comes up.
All right, of course it does.
I don't want to work with that anymore. Why would I want to continue to tell myself I'm awesome?
That's exactly what's going to happen. Shame is going to keep coming up. It was put on us because for whatever reason, it has a survival value. It is there for us to look in the mirror and say, thank you coming up again. I'm sorry, but I am awesome, even if some part doesn't believe me. And we'll go with the part that believes.
Or if you are not able to arrive at a part that believes, then maybe the opportunity is to just sit with the apology that I'm so sorry, it's so difficult to be present in this. And to really sit with maybe what is, somewhere on the surface or just beneath that is sadness or grief.
All the feelings are under there.
Yeah.
And I say, all the feelings are welcome here.
So as I'm looking in the mirror, as I'm saying to myself that I'm awesome, as I'm freaking out that I'm saying to myself that I'm awesome,
Right.
staying in a place of accompaniment and just sitting with the freak out is actually doing the work.
That's doing the work. And it is so hard. It is so hard because it is painful and it's not easy. And I've been doing this a long time. It took me a long time to be able to look at myself in the mirror. It took me a long time. Mm-hmm. What I do is when I look in the mirror, the shame doesn't come up anymore. But every now and then, it's like, well, the book is up. Is my shame going to come up? Da-da-da-da-da. So I cheat and I hold my own hand like this. Mm-hmm. Either I hold my own hand under the mirror or I put my hand here and I said, you're good enough. And I breathe in and I breathe out.
That's really sweet. One of the things that I coach a lot of clients, a lot of leaders, and sometimes, there's a particular moment when a leader is having a tough time. And so many of my clients have teddy bears that they hold while they're in meetings. And it's hilarious because you don't know who's holding a teddy bear while you're discussing strategy. You don't actually know who's hugging their 5-year-old in their mind's eye while they're giving a PowerPoint presentation. You just don't know, right? And so to begin to really craft a new type of relationship with yourself around accompaniment, around being present is, I believe, really the way in which we hold shame as a powerful ally.
That's true. That is so true. Thank you for saying that.
How do I join in a meeting when I'm talking about strategy?
Right.
How do I join in a meeting when I'm, being asked to present on some data?
Right.
How do I begin to even be in relationality with the team while I'm feeling scared, while I'm having shame binds of all sorts, and while I might even get a criticism while I'm presenting?
Right. Well, years ago, a CEO called me and he said, I go to the board meetings, I have my talk, I know what I want to say, and the strangest thing happens. It's almost as if a fog comes over me and I just can't think.
That shame, that fog is shame?
That fog is shame. He came to see me. I told him that is simply and most profoundly the emotion of shame. Yes, I work with it. Yes, I will help him. I helped him be able to get out of the shame. We worked together and he was able to do his presentations.
How did you do that? What were the steps that you used with him to start to unpack his fog of shame?
Quickly, I counter-shamed. I figured out what he'd been doing really well in his life as an adult, and he was able to name a couple things. And then I counter-shamed. Then I was able to say, where did you go as a child when you needed support or you needed something different from what the family? He'd grown up in a very challenging family, similar but different than my family. Turned out he would climb the hill, go to the top of the hill, look out at the house, and he would look around and he would say, I'm okay.
So the first thing that you would do is you would begin to find the evidence that substantiates the individual's worth.
Yes.
In whatever capacities that resonates with that individual.
Yes.
And the second thing you would do before even embarking on the shame journey is to find a safe space.
Yes.
That once that is being unpacked and there's some tenderness and maybe even some rawness, that person can find safety in that space, whatever that is, whether it's a spa, with a group of friends, going out to dinner with somebody that you feel safe, whatever that is. So identify that safe space and then start to find the courage to look at the shame.
Yeah. Gently, slowly, over time. And be patient. Be patient. If you can't be kind, be patient. and just say something like, this can take a long time. This can take as long as it takes.
The future is presenting itself in a way on this planet that at times for me feels very despairing. You had talked about hope.
Yeah.
What is hope for you, Sheila?
When I open my heart, I know you said that the people, a lot is happening in the world that's despairing. I open my heart every day, and I say an invisible prayer for hope, that people grow, that people heal, that people figure out if they made a mistake, that they correct it. Hope, if there's been shame, maybe there's a repair. Hope is something that I can float out there way in the distance and say, I may not know exactly where this is going to land, but I know it's going to land somewhere with somebody. And in the short time, maybe it'll land for somebody on this conversation that hears it. And then hope is something that happens in my heart many times a day.
Is hope for you the seed of light that gets planted in a system that is steeped in shame, that one day that shame will come to light in a way that then humanity feels much more accompanied and witnessed?
I love what you just said. That is awesome, awesome, awesome hope. That is awesome hope with kindness and witnessing and change on a global scale and a personal scale. And it's like levels and levels of transformation in that one sentence you have right there.
Hope is the possibility that we could live in a world that prioritizes connection.
Yes.
And embraces shame.
Yes, we got it.
Yeah. That's beautiful, Sheila. Thank you so much for your time and for being here and for sharing your brilliance and your wisdom and insights about the book.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me. This is so beautiful on so many levels. I hope that this healing shame, the hope and the shame is like a pebble in the pond, and I drop one pebble and it just goes out and out and out and out and out. And maybe somebody hears this and they don't understand it for a year or 5 years, and maybe somebody else understands it. The hope is that this kind of goes out, this ripples in the pond. It just keeps happening. And hope is that change, healing shape is happening.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Thank you, Sheila, for being here.
You're so welcome.